Let's start with a truth that make you uncomfortable in your life. Right now is a reflection of your standards, not your goal dreams, and certainly not your potential. The quality of your relationships, the size of your bank account, the shape of your body, the level of fulfillment you feel day to day, they're all mirrors showing you exactly what you've decided to accept. Now, pause with that. Don't rationalize it. Don't explain it away. Just sit with the reality that you are living what you've chosen to tolerate. Most people think their life is dictated by circumstances, by luck, by what's possible in their current environment. But circumstances are just excuses dressed in logic. The truth is, it's your standards, the internal rules you live by, often unconsciously, that shape your destiny. Standards are invisible boundaries. They're the lines in the sand that say, this is who I am. This is what I accept. This is the minimal level I will settle for. But here's the problem. Most people didn't consciously choose those standards. They inherited them from their parents, from their culture, from failure, from fear, and they never challenged them. So they walk through life believing they're stuck when really they're just obedient to outdated definitions of what's normal. If someone is 50 pounds overweight and they say, I just can't seem to lose it, what they're really saying is, this is the level of health I've been willing to accept. If someone stays in a job they hate year after year, saying, I can't afford to leave, what they're saying is, this is the emotional pain I've chosen to live with because I haven't raised the standard on what I demand from my career or my life. Here's the brutal truthing: if your standards don't change, your results never will. You can read all the books, watch all the videos, attend all the seminars. But until you raise what you're willing to demand from yourself, not occasionally, but consistently, nothing sticks, nothing transforms. Think about areas in your life when you already have high standards. Maybe you're always on time. Maybe you never leave a task unfinished. Maybe you hold yourself to a certain level of integrity no matter the cost. Those standards aren't burdens, they're habits. They don't drain you, they define you. Now ask yourself, why don't you have that same clarity in the areas where you're struggling? It's because your standards there are too low. You've allowed your mind to accept a version of life that is less than what you're capable of. And the longer you live with low standards, the more normal it feels. You tell yourself it's just how it is. But it's not just how it is. It's just what you've decided not to challenge. The most successful people in any field aren't necessarily the smartest, the strongest, or the most experienced. They're the ones with a zero tolerance policy for anything below their standard. They don't hope to be excellent. They demand it. They've trained their mind to expect a higher baseline, and their actions naturally follow that expectation. Think about elite athletes. Champions don't show up to practice hoping to feel motivated. They train because excellence is their standard. A boxer doesn't wait to feel strong to get in the ring. A standard says, no matter what, I show up. I prepare, I perform. It's not emotional, it's identity, and that's the shift most people never make. They try to use motivation to fix a problem of standards. But motivation is temporary, it's unreliable. Standards, on the other hand, are structural. They guide you when you're tired. They drive you when you're uncertain. They are the internal blueprint that tells your brain and body what kind of life you're building. The moment you raise your standard, genuinely, not hypothetically, you alter your internal code. You rewrite the instructions for what's acceptable in your life. Suddenly, things that were once okay start to feel offensive. You can't stand them. You reject them. And that's when you know the shift has happened. It's not about perfection. It's about elevation. You go from saying, I hope this changes, to this must change because I no longer accept anything less. It becomes personal. It becomes a matter of identity. And once your identity changes, your actions change automatically. But here's where people get stuck. They think raising their standards means making a list of new rules or setting a bunch of goals. It doesn't. It means changing what you believe you're worth, what you believe you're capable of, what you refuse to tolerate one more day. Because once you raise the floor, once you say, this is my new minimum, and anything below this is no longer an option, everything above that floor begins to shift. You stop compromising. You stop negotiating with your old limitations. You stop playing small. Your mindset changes from survival to leadership, from fear to responsibility, from I hope to I expect. And that expectation becomes a magnet. It starts attracting new thoughts, new people, new opportunities that align with your new identity. You don't rise to your goals, you fall to standards every single time. Everyone wants more freedom, more money, love, more fulfillment. That part is easy. Wanting is not the problem. The problem is what you require from yourself. There is a massive difference between what people say they should do and what they have made an absolute must in their life. That difference determines whether you succeed, stay stuck, or slowly settle into mediocrity. People walk around all day saying, I should work out, should eat healthier, I should stop scrolling on my phone so much, I should start my business, I should have that conversation. They say it over and over like some broken mantra. But here's the truth they never stop to facing shoulds change nothing. They give the illusion of intention, but they carry no force. They're hollow promises you whisper to yourself so you can feel like you're making progress when you're really just avoiding commitment. Should has no backbone. It has no structure. You can feel inspired about it one day and completely ignore it the next. Why? Because when something is a should, you give yourself permission to delay. You give yourself the freedom to negotiate with your excuses. You tell yourself, I'll get to it when I have time, when I'm less stressed, when I feel more confident, or when the timing is better. And what happens? Days turn into weeks, weeks turn into years, and you're still saying the same things you were saying 5 years ago. Now think about the things you actually follow through on. The things that happen no matter what. You get up to go to work even when you're tired. You pay your bills even when you're overwhelmed. You show up for your kids, your responsibilities, your obligations. Why? Because those aren't shoulds. Those are musts. There's no room for negotiation, no back door, no escape clause. You do them because you have conditioned your mind that they are non-negotiable. That's the power of turning a should into a must. It's not just a mental shift. It's a complete reprogramming of what you allow and expect from yourself. When you say, I must get in shape, everything changes. You stop eating like someone who wants to lose weight and start eating like someone who's already claimed health as their standard. When you say, I must start this business, you stop treating your dream like a side hobby and start investing in it like your future depends on it, because it does. The shift doesn't come from the outside, it comes from within, from drawing a line in the sand and saying, this is it. I've had enough. I'm done tolerating less than I know I'm capable of. This isn't optional anymore. This is my new reality. It's a decision, not a hopeful idea, not a fleeting moment of inspiration, a decision backed by action, intensity, and repetition. Now let's be real. The moment you declare something a must, resistance shows up. Discomfort shows up. Fear shows up. Your old story kicks in. That's normal because your old identity is losing control. It's trying to pull you back to the comfort zone. But here's the secreting: when you upgrade your standards to musts, your brain gets a new set of instructions. It stops filtering life through convenience and starts filtering it through commitment. You start asking better questions. Not, do I feel like it today? But what do I need to do to make it happen no matter what? You stop looking for motivation and start demanding momentum. You stop needing someone to push you because you've built an engine that runs on clarity and conviction. People who change their lives don't wait for motivation. They make the shift internally where they decide, this is happening. I don't care how long it takes. I don't care what I have to sacrifice. I don't care how uncomfortable it is. This is my new standard, and I will not live below it anymore. That energy, you have a screwed up life. That inner fire, that's what separates someone who dabbles from someone who dominates. If you want to see someone's future, look at their musts, not their goals, not their affirmations, not their Instagram feed, their musts. Because you will always get your musts. You will always find a way to meet them, even if the path is unclear. But if something is still a should, even a powerful one, it will always fall behind your distractions, your fears, and your comfort zone. Your breakthrough will never come from something you kind of want. It comes from something you refuse to live without. It's when you say, I'm not waiting for permission. I'm not waiting for the right timing. I'm not waiting for someone else to believe in me. This is mine. This is who I am now. This is my new base level, and anything less is no longer welcome in my life. The moment you turn a should into a must, you draw power from it. You stop wishing and you start executing. You stop hoping and you start owning. You stop entertaining the old excuses and you start building a new identity that is aligned with the future you were made for. If you want to understand why you do what you do and why you keep getting the same results, you have to look beyond habits, routines, or even goals. You have to go deeper, because beneath every pattern of behavior, every repeated decision, every action or inaction, there is one silent force running the show identity. Your identity is the root of your behavior. It determines what feels natural to you. It decides what actions are easy and which ones feel like climbing a mountain. It's not just who you are, it's who you believe you are. And your brain is always working to stay consistent with that internal image. You will never consistently act in a way that contradicts the identity you hold at your core. That's why people sabotage success. That's why they break diets, quit businesses, avoid hard conversations, or push away opportunities. It's not because they're lazy. It's not because they don't want change. It's because the action they need to take is out of alignment with how they see themselves. If you believe deep down that you're not a disciplined person, it doesn't matter how many planners you buy or how many alarms you set. Your brain will find ways to return you to the comfort of that identity. You have a screwed up life. If you believe you're just not good with money, you'll keep finding ways to overspend, avoid budgeting, or stay stuck in survival mode. If you see yourself as someone who always procrastinates, no productivity hack will work for long, because you've already declared who you are, and your behavior will do everything it can to support that declaration. Identity creates consistency. And the challenge is that most people's identity was formed by accident. They picked it up from childhood experiences, from failures, from what other people said about them. They reinforced it through repetition and over time accepted it as truth. But it's not truth. It's a script, a pattern, a program. And just like any program, it can be rewritten. The most powerful transformations don't happen when someone learns a new tactic. They happen when someone changes the answer to one core question: who am I? When you stop saying, I'm trying to be more confident, and you start saying, I am a confident leader, your nervous system starts to adapt to that new standard. When you stop saying, I want to get healthier, and you start saying, I am someone who honors their body, your decisions start aligning with that belief automatically. You don't have to force it. You're just being who you've chosen to become. That's the secret most people miss. They think they need motivation to change, but what they really need is a new identity. Because when identity shifts, behavior follows. You don't have to convince yourself to act a certain way. You just act in alignment with who you believe you are. You no longer feel like you're pretending. You're just being. Think of the difference between someone who's quitting smoking and someone who's already quit. The first person says, I'm trying to stop smoking. The second person says, I'm not a smoker. One is an action, the other is an identity. One is temporary, the other is permanent. One requires willpower, the other requires belief. Identity isn't about fake affirmations or pretending to be something you're not. It's about intentionally choosing who you want to be and then reinforcing it through action until it becomes real. Every time act in alignment with that new version of you, you strengthen it. And every time you fall back into old habits, you have a choice not to shame yourself, but to correct course and ask, is this who I am or is this who I used to be? You can't outperform your identity long term. You can force results temporarily, but they won't last unless they're supported by your internal self-image. That's why the most important work you can do isn't external, it's internal. It's not about adding more on top of who you are. It's about subtracting everything that no longer belongs to who you're becoming. Every excuse, every label, every outdated belief has to be challenged and released. Identity is not fixed. It's fluid. You're not stuck. You're just rehearsing a role that's beneath your potential. And the moment you decide to upgrade that role, to step into the identity of someone who demands more, who expects more, who is more, you begin to rewrite the future in real time. You start talking differently. You start thinking with more clarity. You walk into rooms with a different presence. People respond to you differently because energy doesn't lie. When your identity shifts, everything around you begins to shift with it. Not because the world changes, but because you change. You show up different. You speak different. You act different. And the world has no choice but to respond to the new version of you've decided to become. There's a moment in life when you stop negotiating with your limitations and start declaring war on them. That moment is where transformation begins. Not with another strategy, not with another idea, but with full commitment. Real, relentless, no turning back commitment. The kind that doesn't leave space for plan B, because plan A is the only outcome you're willing to accept. This is the mindset of burning the boats. Burning the boats isn't about reckless risk. It's not about being impulsive or dramatic. It's about cutting off the exit routes that allow you to retreat back into the comfort zone. It's about removing the safety nets that keep you living small. Because as long as you have one foot in the door of your past, you'll never fully walk into your future. When you leave the back door open, you're giving yourself permission to quit. You're saying, if it gets too hard, I can always go back. And that thought, that single escape clause, is what keeps most people stuck. Throughout history, the phrase, burn the boats, has symbolized an unshakable decision. It comes from stories of warriors landing on foreign shores, outnumbered and outmatched, who would burn their ships so there was no option but to fight forward. No retreat, no surrender. The only way home was through victory. That level of commitment unlocks something primal in us. It forces focus. It awakens resourcefulness. It demands execution because there's no room left for hesitation. You either move or you die. In today's world, most people are paralyzed by options. They're surrounded by backup plans, exit strategies, and comfort zones disguised as practicality. They dip their dreams while keeping the rest of their body firmly planted in what's familiar. They say they want success, but they won't let go of the things that are silently killing their ambition. Jobs that drain them, relationships that distract them, habits that weaken them. They don't need more time or more tools. They need a line in the sand. They need to decide once and for all that going back is no longer on the table. Burning the boats means saying, this is it. I'm all in. It means shutting the door on your excuses, not giving them another seat at the table. It means refusing to entertain the idea of living below your potential, even for another day. It's the moment you stop asking, what if it doesn't work? And start asking, what must I do to make it work? Because when you remove the exit, your brain finds a way. It stops looking for an escape and starts searching for solutions. People fear commitment because it feels like a trap, but the real trap is indecision. Living in limbo is the most exhausting state of all. Half committed, distracted, half alive. You spend more energy dancing around your goals than it would take to face them head on. But when you burn the boats, when you say, there's no going back, you release yourself from that mental tug of war. You free up the bandwidth to go all in. And in that space, breakthroughs happen. Not because the path got easier, because you got stronger. You can't build a future while holding on to the past. You can't become a new version of yourself while clinging to old habits, old patterns, or old identities. Burning the boats is about shedding what no longer serves the mission. That might mean ending relationships that keep you in a loop of smallness. It might mean quitting a job that suffocates your purpose. It might mean deleting distractions, walking away from environments that reward mediocrity, or making a public declaration that you're done playing safe. And yes, it will be uncomfortable. But growth doesn't live in comfort. It lives in clarity. And clarity only comes when you decide. There's a moment when your vision becomes bigger than your fear. When the pain of staying the same finally outweighs the discomfort of change. That's the moment when people break through. Not because they became fearless, because they became committed. Fear doesn't disappear. It just loses its grip when you've got nothing left to lose and everything to gain. When you burn the boats, you leave behind the need to be perfect. You stop waiting until you're ready, until it makes sense, until it feels right. You stop preparing to act and you just act. You move forward with urgency because the cost of staying still is no longer acceptable. Burning the boats means making your goal your only option. It means stepping into the identity of someone who finishes what they start, who follows through no matter how hard it gets. It's the moment where you stop asking for guarantees and start betting on yourself because you finally understand that safety is an illusion. The only real safety is in growth. The only real security is in mastering your own mind, your own discipline, your own fire. And that only happens when you leave yourself no way out. Raising your standard is the first move. That decision, that moment of clarity where you say, no more, is powerful. But what turns that decision into a lifestyle is conditioning. Without conditioning, a new standard is just a spike of motivation, a burst of energy that fades the moment life pushes back. But when you condition a new standard, when you reinforce it over and over again, it becomes automatic. It becomes part of who you are. It becomes the floor you refuse to fall below no matter what. Most people make powerful decisions, but they don't stick. They decide they're done settling. You're done procrastinating, done hiding. But a week later, they're right back where they started. It's not because they weren't serious. It's because they didn't follow that decision with repetition. They didn't install the new standard into their nervous system. They didn't make it real through consistent reinforcement. The mind will always drift back to what's familiar unless you deliberately train it to operate differently. The difference between people who change their lives and those who stay stuck isn't that one group is more talented or lucky. It's that one group practices their new identity until it becomes second nature. They rehearse their new standard like a skill, because that's exactly what it is. Discipline is a skill. Confidence is a skill. Following through is a skill. And skills don't come from inspiration. They come from conditioning. Conditioning means you don't just act differently when you feel inspired. You act differently when you don't. You show up even when it's inconvenient. You follow through even when you're tired. You keep your promises to yourself when no one is watching. That consistency is what separates temporary change from permanent transformation. Anyone can act strong for a day, but conditioning is what makes strength the default. The mind and body are incredibly adaptable. Whatever you feed them consistently becomes normal. If you condition stress, stress becomes your baseline. If you condition excuses, those excuses become the story you live inside of. But if you condition execution, if you condition focus, if you condition self-respect, then that becomes your new baseline. That becomes your identity. And once something becomes part of your identity, you no longer have to think about it. It's just who you are. That's why rituals matter. That's why repetition matters. Every morning you wake up and reinforce your new standard, you're carving it deeper into your system. You're not just thinking differently, you're becoming someone new. You're building the mental and emotional muscles to carry the life you say you want. Because it's not enough to raise the standard. You have to condition your body and mind to live at that new level. Too often, people wait for a breakthrough. What they need is a routine. When they think change happens in one massive shift, but true change happens in what you practice daily. The thoughts you allow, the language you use, the actions you repeat, the environments you choose. You're conditioning something every day, whether you're aware of it or not. The only question is, are you conditioning greatness or are you reinforcing limitation? When you decide to live at a new standard, you're going to face resistance. Your environment might not support it. People around you might not understand it. Your own mind will try to pull you back to what feels safe. That's when conditioning matters most, because motivation won't carry you through resistance. But habit will, identity will, and habits and identity are shaped through deliberate, consistent practice. You don't get to visit greatness. You live there or you don't. You don't? Try to be disciplined. You train discipline like an athlete trains for performance. You don't try to be focused. You eliminate distractions, guard your time, and build the mental sharpness to stay on course when everything around you tries to pull you off it. Conditioning the new standard means you're not hoping it sticks. You're ensuring it sticks by repeating it until your system doesn't know any other way. This is why some people elevate and stay there while others rise for a moment and fall back. The ones who stay don't just raise the standard, they reinforce it daily. They live it. They breathe it. They build rituals that support it, environments that align with it, and relationships that hold them accountable to it. They feed the new version of themselves every day until it's no longer new. It's just them. You become what you condition, not what you believe for a moment, not what you wish for when you're feeling inspired, what you practice, what you rehearse with relentless consistency. Your life will always match what you've normalized through repetition. If you want permanent change, you have to outwork the patterns that built your old life. And the only way to do that is through daily, deliberate conditioning of the new standard. Every breakthrough begins with a decision, not a wish, not a hope. A line in the sand commitment that says, I will no longer accept less than I'm capable of. You've seen it now. Raising your standards isn't just about improvement. It's about transformation. It's about choosing to live by a new code, one that's not based on what's easy, convenient, or familiar, but on what's necessary to create the life you were made for. When you raise your standards, you stop tolerating what drains you. When you turn your shoulds into musts, you stop negotiating with your excuses. When you upgrade your identity, you start behaving like the person who already owns the life you're after. When you burn the boats, you remove retreat as an option and force yourself to rise. And when you condition your new standard daily, you build a life where success is not a spike. It's the baseline. This isn't theory, this is ownership. And ownership is where freedom begins. You already have everything inside you to create a life on your terms, but nothing changes until you change. And that starts the moment you stop waiting and start deciding this is your time. Raise the standard and never look back.